answer the questions as I read through them. Give each one of you a little time to get through them for yourself. Let's get rolling. How does your language sway the majority of voters, like the elderly, women, and Republicans, to vote yes? First group, go ahead.
I'm Donnie Wertschafter. I didn't get a chance to introduce myself, but go ahead.
Okay, how does your language sway the majority of voters, like the elderly, women, and Republicans, to vote yes for this issue?
So I'm on the committee to represent the petitioners of the Ohio Cannabis Rights Amendment, and I am now acting as attorney for the Ohio Rights Group. And our purpose was to get on the ballot language protecting the patients before greedy amendments came to try to take those rights away. It's really important that we earmark basic rights. That's what our amendment does, is it defines our right to this medicine, our right to do this in our homes, and makes the legislature start to define these things and move away from this prohibitionist scene that we're on. We think it's really an important first step to do this before we let the monopolists move in.
How do you appeal to the majority voters, though? How do you appeal to
Well, we already have majority voters. 81% of the people are in favor of medical. We can win this. We can win this easily. We just have to get it on the ballot.
Thank you.
If it was only that easy, not in Ohio, kids, it doesn't work that way. Getting an issue to the ballot takes more than just getting it to the ballot. You've actually got to run a campaign. You've got to have it well funded. You have to have an organization. Look, I think it's important that we just be realistic with each other. We actually start with a upper 50s support, and the opposition's in the 30s. We actually end up winning women and men, and the only subgroup that we end up not winning with, and you're never going to win with, is this people that are 65 and older. That's because they are not supportive of any of this. Period. Hand to God.
I'm insulted.
We wrote an initiative where we feel like we can explain to people that we can actually defeat the black market. I respect the concept of restriction in the basis that it's the way that people would think that you would end the black market. 78 years of prohibition hasn't stopped tens of thousands of people from growing cannabis in this country. If you want to actually beat the black market, you actually have to allow people the opportunity to make money in that market. If you don't, I don't know why people think all of a sudden now if we allow a certain regulated group of growers that it's going to end the black market. Because it's not. People are not going to stop using cannabis.
So
the only way you can allow people to beat the black market, the way you can sell to people who are going to be questioning is by explaining to them that the only way you can get into the market to beat that market is to allow everybody a legal place in. If you don't, the black market continues.
So a lot of people are afraid of the black market.
But the reason they're afraid of the black market is because it has no regulation on it. But how do you regulate a market if you don't allow people into it? If you do not give people a place in the market, if 78 years of prohibition has not stopped the black market, regulating a small portion of it is not going to stop the black market.
And every measurable statistic has shown that with legalization, with the free market, etc., children use it less, children get less access to it, and that's ultimately what women want to know. Conservatives want to know that the free market is there, that entrepreneurs can operate freely, and that's how we're going to win those voters.
That's not what they're worried about, let me tell you.
Yes, it is.
That's not what they're worried about.
Chime in.
Yes, it
Well,
is.
what the conservatives are worried about is regulation. What the conservatives are worried about is that with home grow, the real concern is that that someone's going to be growing pot in their backyard and their kids are going to throw a football over their fence and go pick off buds. That's what they're worried about. They're worried about whether it's right or wrong. That's the reality. And when we start kidding ourselves that they aren't concerned about that, that's when we lose.
I don't think anybody.
But everybody's concerned.
I don't think anybody is kidding themselves if people aren't concerned with that. I think
it's a primary.
It's our responsibility as advocates for this plant, for this culture. It is our responsibility to answer the questions that they might have about that. And that's why we have things like security that keeps any kind of homegrown in a locked enclosure. So the scenario that you talked about, a kid throwing their ball over the fence, they're not going to be able to get into the.
We're getting off the subject of women, minorities, and we have to stay on topic with that question. Next question. Don gets a chance and then go to the next question.
Elderly Republicans.
Yeah,
when they're voting.
yeah.
Basically, I have to agree with Ian on one point, is that there are a lot of different demographics that will not support any of our issues. Aside from that, as far as
Can you talk louder?
a lot of people don't like, they have family, they have friends, they have loved ones that they don't want to see going to jail for something that a lot of people are currently doing already.
Right.
I don't know, how familiar some of the different cities are, but there's a lot of people that are getting arrested and going to jail right now. And as far as those people, surely they have someone that they love or care about that they don't want to see get arrested, and they also like money. So I mean, there's opportunities, equal opportunity for everybody to participate. So that's how ours feels.
Okay. Thank you. Next question.
Next question. For the sake of transparency, will you disclose your financial and political backers?
High Rights Group.
Yes, we already have. We filed a campaign finance report on 29th of January. We filed that as an in-kind contribution because we had reformed our PAC on the 23rd of July. So we're practicing disclosure for the full calendar year. So you can go to the Secretary of State's website and you can look for our information right there.
Great. Thank you.
And we raised and spent $1.3 million, and Robert, Big O is one of the funders. Frosty Rucker, a football player, is one of the funders. Rick Kirk, who's a developer downtown Columbus, is one of the funders. Let's see here, who else? Barbara Gould, Nanette Lepore, a fashion designer from New York, who's actually from Youngstown, is a part of the mix here. Cheney Pruitt, John Humphreys. Look, we've got 10 different groups, and they're not individuals. They're investment groups. They've invested a couple $1 million each total, and they're investing more. And, if that's bad, then that's bad. But that's the reality. And they're disclosed, and there are going to be more people being disclosed as we go along here, because, again, you can't get to policy without winning. Policy without winning is just a great conversation. And this is about making sure that we reform the laws, and you've got to spend money to do it.
Can you tell us when you will be disclosing everything?
Yeah, in this month there are more people that are going to be disclosed, and then we have regular financial disclosures.
Okay. So by the end of this month, you should have everybody.
I'm not sure that everybody, but certainly a whole nother set of people are coming to be disclosed. And then we have regular financial disclosures.
Okay, thank you. Sri?
Well, a lot of our donors will be released on our public filing report when we're ready to do that. We have to respect their privacy. A lot of them don't want us to make a big public statement about the fact that they donated. What I can say is that there is a lot of people that are very worried about the situation in Ohio. They're very worried about the dangerous precedent that other initiatives are setting. And there's a massive infrastructure of people around the country, not just industry people, but people that care about social justice and freedom, that are mobilizing against us. And our report will show who those people are.
Thank you. Don?
Yes. Well, as far as who our one person is that had contacted us, he said that he had considered dropping $2 million in one of the other campaigns. And I don't really want to release his name. I don't want to scare him off at this point. Once our summary is approved, though, we believe that he will be a key factor in getting us all the events and all the materials that we'll need for those events. And
You will release it as soon as you get.
as soon as we have the information, as soon as I meet with him and we have the available information, of course. It's not a big secret. I mean, he likes our idea of real freedom. He is actually a well-known manager in Cincinnati. I'll say that. Manages some really high-profile clients. And as far as that goes too, once our summary is approved, we'll have his full backing for sure. There's a couple of others that have reached out to us, and as far as the grassroots campaign, we may ask for contributions at some point too. Because, realistically, it is going to take a lot of money, and I think Ohioans are ready to come together for real freedom. And so We'll find out when the summary is approved later this month where it goes from there.
Okay, thank you. Next question.
Next question. How are you planning to diffuse the opposition like various drug-free organizations? Yeah.
With the truth. Well, I've spent the last 2 years debating drug policy, the prohibitionist crowd, and honestly, that was the easiest part of my job, because when you have the truth on your side, it's pretty easy to debate these folks, and many times we got them to basically concede that Ohioans do need this right. I'll be perfectly honest with you, the hardest part of trying to convince people is trying to get everybody in this movement on the same page and working together. That's the hardest part, and getting them to contribute in meaningful ways. I mean, I love it when people like our Facebook page, but honestly, that is literally the least thing you can do. It takes about 1/10 of a calorie to make a like. It's very important. There's a lot of folks in here that are very passionate activists, and you know what? You guys, once you make up your decision and who you're going to support, we ask that whoever it is, I don't care who it is, get active. Don't do it from behind the computer. You need to get out there, get active, make it happen. And like Ian said, it takes cash, And so if you guys want to support something, you got to back it with more than just Facebook likes. You got to help us out. You got to make this thing a reality.
Thank you, John.
Yeah, digital democracy is awesome, and I love the it is about a 10th of a calorie. Maybe, I don't know. We are actually working. We've been working with Marijuana Policy Project, the Drug Policy Alliance, in drafting the amendment. So finding their assistance has been very helpful. But I think really this is all about Ohio. This doesn't really have anything to do with people out of the state that don't like what's going on in Ohio. This is about Ohioans having a conversation with Ohioans. And you're going to find that there are a lot of elected officials and community leaders and faith leaders that are coming on board with our initiative. We've been working with them. We've been reaching out to them. I think there are going to be a lot of people that will really, really surprise you, in addition to patient advocates, because let's face it, we need to make a change. Let's take a step, and if it's not the full journey, at least take the first step and get where we can have realistic marijuana reform, and you're going to find that part of it.
Sweet.
They haven't been working with Drug Policy Alliance and Marijuana Policy Project. I would have known about that.
Thanks for calling me a liar. That's not actually true.
Well, I would have known about that. You probably would have told me. But
You have to
either
ask
way,
your own. You
I
have to
don't think
answer
so.
the question.
But
Just
I'm not a liar. Actually, we have worked with Ethan and we've worked with Tamar. So I appreciate you're not calling me a liar, too.
Sure, sure.
Hey,
Thanks.
listen,
Sure.
listen, this is how it's going to go. When you're asked the question, you have to only answer specifically for your group. You cannot say, unlike this other group, report. You have to, that's the only way we're going to keep this civil and be able to finish all the questions, which we all really want to do.
Thank you, Heather.
We need to get through these. If I got a handful.
We're going to educate people on why we feel our initiative is the one that can do what's the ultimate concern, is to create a thriving cannabis market while reducing the black market. That's what we do as advocates. Doesn't matter which group we're with. It's how we create a thriving market versus how we reduce the black market. That's the bottom line for any initiative, and we plan to go and speak with them and explain to them why we feel like our initiative will do that. That's what we're going to do.
Thank you, Michael.
All right. Yes, with the you look at Colorado and how they have a lot of the police there have a lot of respect for the businesses, and the businesses there have respect for the police. And that happened because they stopped arresting them for black market activity so much and gave legitimate businesses. And I think the same can happen here, as far as appeasing the law enforcement and those types with our amendment. We're probably the ones with the biggest bullseye on us for that one. I understand, but realistically, if it's legal and you want to get rid of the black market, I still say the best way to do that is to lower the prices. And you lower the prices of the legal market. You let everybody participate, and all the other excessive regulations. I just feel that all that does is drive the prices, and we'll still have people going to jail. So, basically, that would appease them. That would appeal to them if you have no more black market, because we actually got rid of it because we're competing with it, and you have your legal activity or legal activity, about the same outcome as far as your personal finances. You're going to go legal every time.
Thank you, Don. Next question.
Are your campaign finance reports filed, were they by January 31st?
Just say yes or no.
Yes.
Yes. Great. Next question.
Next question.
No, we didn't have to. We didn't have to file a campaign finance report. There's no activity.
Okay.
Not before the 31st.
Okay.
Okay, next question. Describe the polling you have done to refine your ballot language.
Margie?
We frankly didn't do polling to define our ballot language. We are ourselves experts in cannabis policy. I've worked in it for 15 years. I spent 9 years working in the pharmaceutical industry. I know this industry inside, outside, and backwards. So we instead decided to focus on what we thought was important. What we thought was important were the rights of Ohioans to use, really, like I said earlier, it is the fundamental right to use that is important. The fundamental right to use. I don't know how you poll this, because people don't understand. People are going to say, I don't get this, but it's the fundamental right to use that is important. So if I want to look at polling, there have been at least 5 or 6 polls that I can point to that have been done concerning cannabis. There's a Quinnipiac poll. There's a poll that was done by the University of Cincinnati. There's another poll, in fact, that was done last, I was called for an interview, I think it was by Channel 6, that said if they had polled out at 56% on medical marijuana, they called me and said, hey, we've got a poll that says 56%. Aren't you happy? I said, 56%? You got to be kidding me. But they have a poll that said 56%, and they're polling for full legal, and this was, like I say, last spring, was like 32%. So it's all over the place, and I think what we thought was more important, honestly, to get the language out there. And let me back this up one thing. Our language is an evolution. There was a ballot language that we did in 2012 that we did commission a poll for. We polled that particular language, and we found out that it was polling well. It was the rights-based language that we're talking about right now. It polled well over 60%. I think it was 62 to 65%. So we have essentially done the polling. I think the polling is out there that supports our cause.
Well, I guess just augment to what Mary Jane said, we do have a national reform advocate that has sponsored a poll on behalf of the Ohio Rights Group, and that's going to take place later this year. So we're pretty excited about the fact that our specific initiative in our language is going to be polled, because as Ian will tell you, once you have favorable polling, people can see that it's a viable option, then that in turn creates support. So we're pretty excited to have that support.
Thank you.
We've been polling since September. We haven't been out of the field since. We have over 3,000 respondents. We poll every week. We have what's called a rolling window track. So every single week we're polling, and it's really pretty simple. We're asking questions. We're asking the voters about personal use. We're asking about medicinal use. We're asking them pro and con. We're approaching this as a professional campaign because that's what it needs to be to win. And by doing it, we're not deluding ourselves into believing one message works better than another, and we're just going to stick with that. We actually test attacks on ourselves, attacks on the campaign. We run a current negative campaign against internally in the campaign, so we know what's happening, because that's the way you win. And the polling really does help you build a pathway forward. And what we can see is every week, there is progress, and there is certainly progress with. I made a joke earlier about 65 and older, but it's true. 65 and older is a tough crowd to get through, and that's something that we are continually working towards, because that's the one demographic group that we haven't broken into majority yet.
Thank you. Street, Jacob?
Yeah, so, when it comes to polling for writing the actual language of the amendment, we've certainly conducted focus groups. We haven't done actually polling for the language. As far as we're concerned, if you write your language based on polling, you're going to write a bad law. It might be a law that passes, sure. It might, because, you're polling, yeah, that's great. But we believe that what you should do, the right way to do it, is to write an actual good policy, write an actual comprehensive common sense law first, and then build messaging around that. And perhaps you have to convince some more people. Yes, but Oregon and Colorado have shown that's possible. It's a different way of going.
Thank you. Don?
We also.
Oh, sorry. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I just want to point out, we do have a polling firm on retainer. We have a donor who's been willing to pay for it as well. It's the same firm that did California in 2010 and will be doing California in 2016. They're based out of Columbus. They're called ECS, maybe you've heard of them. I have. And they're going to be conducting our polling, and we're running the exact same type of plan. But also, we're moving forward in 2016. A poll is not going to dictate how we're going to draft our language as we go to the ballot. A poll is much more important when you're in the heat of an actual campaign.
Thank you.
Yeah, as far as polling, as far to craft our language, basically I had helped with the Alternative Treatment Amendment, if any of you remember that medical bill. Anyways, initiative, not bill, rather. And having done that, while we were petitioning for it, everybody in Ohio, everywhere we went, was saying we'd rather see full legalization, but we understand we'll sign for medical first. So we decided to start working on that. And it's actually been a couple of years. We've had a couple rewrites here and there. We've actually taken input from all over the state, and everybody that's ever contacted us has got their input has gotten consideration. I feel that we've put together what Ohioans have told us they want.
Thank you. Next question.
Next question is for Responsible Ohio. How did Responsible Ohio come up with, and how did you guys come up with 1 ounce legal? Was it done on purpose so we could not make our own oil enough to provide for? I can't even read the rest of that, but I'll let you. How'd you come up? Basically, the question is asking, how'd you come up with 1 ounce legal?
Sure, it's consistent with what other states are doing. We took a look at where this has been viable in other states, and we looked at their language and followed it. I mean, it's pretty simple.
Thank you.
All in all, what do all the groups presently see? What is going to happen with marijuana prohibition in Ohio?
Well, we know the answer.
Yeah. It's going to end.
Get used to it. It's over. It's gonna be.
All right, next.
Thank you.
Let me see if I can get a different question.
You guys color, the color code.
Okay, your initiative, I'm going to go with this next one. Your initiatives is being passed around here. Can't some of us read it?
Of course. Yes.
Okay. I think that's it.
You have copies here?
The initiatives are out there if you want to read them.
Oh, fantastic.
Ours is downloadable on our website, so if you want to grab it.
Really? Actually, James is back here. You hold your hand. James has petitions.
We also have our petitions here as well, so if you'd like to sign, definitely see me before you leave. And it's also available on the website.
Great, thank you.
What are your qualifying medical conditions? All for all the groups, and where do you have your taxes going?
Qualified medical conditions, I'm not sure I can name them all. The logic of them is the first 4 or 5 are from the Compassionate IND, which is the only legal program for medical marijuana in the United States. Where the patients, there are about 4 patients now who get 300 cigarettes a month, marijuana cigarettes a month. So their conditions come first, because we figured like they've already gotten in the door, why can't the rest of us who have those conditions? I have one of them, by the way. The second line, which we were looking for, were the conditions that had solid research out there to back that they had medical applications in, including Crohn's disease, celiac disease, ALS. We included in that with pain. And what was the other part of the question?
Seizures.
There was a 2-part question. Where do taxes go?
Where do taxes?
Taxes. Okay, taxes. The taxes are. What has to be understood about cannabis is that's why we use the medical therapeutic and industrial uses of cannabis, because as far as medical goes, medical marijuana is under the control of the FDA. Marinol was be considered an FDA approved drug. Nabalone is another FDA-approved drug. And according to the Ohio Revised Code, I can't cite the exact section, but it's on our website. There's a section of the Ohio Revised Code that says that prescription drugs are not taxed in the state of Ohio. That's why we don't pay taxes on prescription drugs. So cannabis is an herb, people. Cannabis is an herb. All right? So I say that because herbs are taxable in the state of Ohio, both the growing of the herb when you sell it in the market, and then when you buy it as a supplement. So that it can be taxed as either its own tax, or it can be taxed with an excise tax. Okay, an excise tax is a tax that's an additive tax. It also can have sales tax applied to it, which is going to be between 5 and 7 and 8%.
So you're going to have both those plus
What
the
we
sales
do,
tax?
what we do is we decided consciously to not put a bunch of minutia in an initiative. We don't want a 3,000, 5,000, 10,000 word piece of crap, if you will, going into a constitution. This is our organizing document, people. This is our heart and our soul. This is how we operate. This is our bylaws.
So where are you going to? What are you going to do with the taxes that you collect?
So what we say to this is that, okay, 3 seconds?
30.
Remember I said we codified the cannabis control? It's up to the control commission to apply the taxes so that they can fluctuate with and go be higher or lower depending upon the market.
Where are you going to send them? Where?
Send them?
What are you
My Department of Taxation.
Okay.
What are you funding with those tax dollars? I think is the
General revenue. Colorado. Okay, general revenue? You could answer. Okay, sorry. Thank you, Mary. Ian or Chris?
The first question was debilitating medical conditions, right?
What medical conditions what are considered medical conditions under here?
I just looked at my bag to see if I had the amendment with me. I don't. I'll try to do it from memory. But you guys can look at the amendment. It's the usual suspects: cancer, PTSD, sickle cell anemia, AIDS, HIV, CASHA, pain related to, I think, the hepatitis. But feel free to look at the amendment. As it relates to the tax structure, we're a 15% flat tax across the board, across all revenues. That money we project out to be somewhere in the neighborhood of $680 million once the market's stabilized. We send that money to 3 different places. 55% of that money goes to a local government stabilization fund, and that means that it goes to townships and local government entities on a per capita basis for use for things like law enforcement, police, fire, EMT, road and bridge repair, other infrastructure projects, and various health services. The second piece of that is a 30% that goes to a strong county fund. Same idea, per capita, per county, and we ran the numbers. That would be about $40 million on a stabilized basis to Hamilton County. I think Cuyahoga County looks something like $63 million. I don't have in the back of my head now Franklin County, but I assume it's somewhere between 63 and 40 because Franklin is bigger than Hamilton. The third piece of that funding goes to the Compassionate Care Fund. That fund does a couple of things. First, it funds the commission itself, which is going to have a lot of enforcement and regulatory authority. The second piece of it goes to mental health services and addiction and treatment prevention services. And then the third piece of that goes to a marijuana business incubator that it works something like the Third Frontier policy. It funnels grants to small businesses, healthcare systems like Cleveland Clinic, and I said small businesses, local governments. It funnels money to work as an incubator to get research going, to get pot jobs going, to give people the opportunity to get involved in this industry. That's where the money goes.
Thank you very much.
All right,
So you, Jacob?
I'd like to answer that. Or you guys already
yeah.
know what you
No,
did.
go
Oh,
ahead,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
It's okay.
So, as far as specific qualifying conditions, I can't really get too far into that. We haven't finalized on this yet. But yeah, I mean, the big ones, for automatic qualifying conditions, again, we have 2 tiers. So, if you have a diagnosis of the automatic qualifying condition, you won't even need a doctor's recommendation. The second tier, if you have a diagnosis plus a doctor's recommendation, you'll be able to qualify. The automatic qualifying conditions, again, different types of cancer, AIDS, HIV, PTSD, so on and so forth. We're working with Americans for Safe Access on that drug policy alliance, and actually we'll be speaking with Mary James about that as well. again, big concern for us, obviously. As far as where the tax money is going to go and tax structure and things like that, I mean, 680 million when the market, I mean, ArcView's latest estimate for the total market capitalization is like $1 billion. So if you have $680 million in tax revenue, that's pretty high taxes. I mean, 15% flat tax. I mean, that's at every level, though, right?
Where's your tax go?
Well, I mean, so we're going to have an effective tax rate. We're not going to tax it at every level of 15%. That's like an effective tax rate of like